Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really fascinating ancient text. We're looking specifically at Leviticus chapter 26.
Hmm.
And what's so striking here is how it basically functions as a blueprint, you know, for a relationship.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It lays out this incredibly clear choice. There's one path leading to blessings if you follow certain commands,
Right.
and then a dramatically different path, really severe consequences if you don't.
Exactly. It's framed explicitly as a covenant. Here are the terms, here are the potential outcomes. Very direct.
The stakes are right there, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's start at the beginning. What are the absolute core commands, the non-negotiables this whole thing is built on?
Well, it kicks off immediately setting terms for worship and identity. The very first command is crystal clear. Do not make idols,
Okay.
or set up an image or a sacred stone for yourselves, and do not place a carved stone in your land to bow down before it.
Right. No idol worship.
And right after that, the reason, for I am the Lord your God. It establishes that exclusive relationship immediately.
So that identity, that exclusive worship is number one. What else is right there at the foundation?
Then it moves straight into sacred time and sacred space. It says, observe my Sabbaths and have reverence for my sanctuary.
Okay, so time and place.
Yeah, and just like before, it's reinforced, I am the Lord.
Yeah.
So these are presented as like the fundamental requirements, how you relate to this God, honoring specific times, respecting a specific place.
Got it. So reject the alternatives, honor the time, respect the place. That's the bedrock. Okay, so then the text lays out path number one, the one you get if you do follow these rules. What does that life look like?
The picture it paints is one of just, well, incredible favor and abundance. It starts with the absolute basics. Reliable rain.
Okay.
Rain in its season, which means, timely water for crops. The ground will yield its crops. The trees, their fruit.
So fundamental agricultural success, prosperity.
Yeah. Exactly. And it gets even better. It promises such abundance that your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until planting.
Wow, that's continuous processing, nonstop bounty.
Right. Imagine that cycle. One harvest running right into the next. You'll eat all the food you want. And you'll even have so much left over
Yeah.
that you're still eating last year's harvest when you need to move it out to make room for the new. It's just an image of overflowing plenty.
That really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Right.
More than enough. What about security, safety?
Peace. Peace is explicitly granted in the land. You
Yeah.
can lie down and no one will make you afraid.
Huh.
Savage beasts, they'll be removed from the land.
Hmm.
And the sword, which means, war, conflict, it will not pass through your country.
And there's that part about amazing military success, right? The ratios seem almost unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. It says, you will pursue your enemies and they will fall by the sword before you. And then it gives these specific kind of startling numbers. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000.
Yeah.
The idea is just overwhelming victory. Your small group defeating their huge army.
Incredible leverage. What else falls under this blessing category?
There's also a promise of fruitfulness, population growth.
Yeah.
I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful, increase your numbers.
Uh-huh.
And crucially, this is tied right back to the agreement itself. And I will keep my covenant with you. It's all part of the deal.
And maybe the deepest promise seems to be about God's presence itself.
Yes, absolutely. That's presented as the ultimate sign that the relationship is working. I will put my dwelling place among you, and I will not abhor you.
Wow.
I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people. Not distant divinity, it's intimate, dwelling right there with them.
And it connects this back to their history, doesn't it? Reminds them where they came from.
Exactly. Wraps up this section saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt.
Right, the Exodus.
So that you would no longer be slaves to the Egyptians. I broke the bars of your yoke and enabled you to walk with heads held high. That foundational act of liberation is part of this same ongoing covenant promise.
Okay, so if you follow these initial commands, you get this incredible package. Amazing abundance, peace, total security, military dominance, population growth, and the actual presence of the divine, all rooted in that history of deliverance.
That's the ideal state. Pretty much everything you could ask for within this covenant framework.
But then, yeah, the text just pivots hard, shows the other side of the coin. What happens if they don't listen? If they reject the rules, break the covenant?
Right. And the consequences are laid out in, well, stark and escalating detail. It doesn't start small either. It's immediate impacts.
Like what?
Things like sudden terror, wasting diseases and fever that will destroy your sight and drain away your life.
So immediate physical suffering,
Yes.
debilitation.
Yeah, and that agricultural blessing. Completely reversed. You will plant seed in vain because your enemies will eat it.
Wow.
Military success turns into defeat. You will be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you. And there's this really chilling psychological element, too.
Shiz.
You will flee even when no one is pursuing you. Just this pervasive sense of fear, dread, vulnerability.
Okay, and this is where that phrase comes in, right? 7 times over. Repeats. What does that signify? It seems to mean things are getting much worse.
Exactly. That phrase, 7 times over, or sometimes you see it as sevenfold, it signals an intensification, a multiplication of the judgment. You know, the number 7 often implies completeness or perfection in this literature.
Right.
But here it's applied to the consequences. Like, if the first round of warnings, the terror, disease, defeat, doesn't lead to change, then the punishment gets fully ramped up. 7 times worse.
So, level 2, the next 7 times over. What does that look like?
That level seems aimed at breaking what it calls stubborn pride. The description is vivid. The sky becomes like iron, the ground like bronze.
Complete drought, unproductive land, the exact opposite of the promised rain.
Precisely. Your strength is bent for nothing, because the soil, the trees, they yield zero. The very source of life is just shut off.
Okay.
And if even after that the hostility continues, the afflictions multiply again, another 7 times over.
And this is where the wild animals come back, but in a bad way this time.
Yes. Before they were removed for safety, now they're agents of punishment. I will send wild animals among you, which will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, and make you so few in number that your roads will be deserted.
That's brutal. Attacking family, livelihood, safety, leading to total isolation.
It's desolation. And if the hostility still continues, another escalation, another 7 times over.
What happens then?
This is where the text says the divine response becomes explicitly hostile. I myself will be hostile toward you. The sword is brought specifically to avenge the breaking of the covenant.
Okay.
Plague spreads within the cities. They're given into the hands of their enemies.
And food, the most basic thing.
It becomes drastically scarce. A severe famine. The description is quite specific. 10 women will be able to bake your bread in one oven.
Sharing an oven, that's extreme scarcity.
And they will dole out the bread by weight. Not just freely available bread, but rationed meticulously. And even then, you eat, but you're not satisfied.
And this awful path leads to, well, probably the most shocking image in the whole chapter.
It does. The text states starkly, you will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters.
It's horrific.
It's presented as the absolute nadir of desperation, the result of extreme siege and famine, where society itself just breaks down completely.
And if even that unimaginable horror doesn't stop the cycle, there's another escalation, another 7 times over, leading to, what, total destruction and exile?
Yes. Yeah. That's the next stage. The high places, the incense, altars, symbols of that forbidden worship right from the start, they get destroyed. Dead bodies are piled on the worthless idols.
A complete desecration.
Cities become ruins. The sanctuary itself is laid waste. God says he won't accept their offerings anymore. The connection is just severed. The land itself is laid waste, so desolate that even your enemies who live there will be appalled by it.
And the people themselves are driven out.
Scattered. I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out my sword and pursue you. Their own land is ruined, their cities destroyed. And then there's that specific callback to one of the initial commands they broke.
The Sabbaths.
Exactly. Then the land will enjoy its Sabbath years all the time that it lies desolate, and you are in the country of your enemies.
So the land gets its rest because they're gone.
And the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. Like the land is finally getting the rest it was denied, but only because the people have been forcibly removed.
And for those scattered people in exile, the punishment continues, even psychologically.
Oh, definitely. Fear becomes constant, pervasive. I will make their hearts so fearful in the lands of their enemies that the sound of a windblown leaf will put them to flight.
Just the sound of a leaf.
They run and fall as if fleeing a battle, even when no one's chasing them. They trip over each other in panic. They're completely unable to stand up to their enemies.
They perish among the nations, the text says. The enemy land devours them.
And it explicitly links this wasting away in exile to their sins, also because of their father's sins. It's presented as this cumulative weight, generational disobedience leading to this utter collapse.
Wow. That is an incredibly intense, almost overwhelming description of consequences, escalating from disease and defeat all the way to famine, cannibalism, total destruction, exile, and this deep psychological terror.
It really underscores how seriously the text treats violating this covenant. It's basically a complete, systematic undoing of every single blessing that was promised.
But crucially, the chapter doesn't just end there in total darkness. There's a shift, isn't there? A possibility for restoration. What's the condition for finding a way back?
The condition boils down to confession and humbling. The text says, "But if they will confess their sins and the sins of their fathers, their treachery against me, and their hostility toward me."
Okay, acknowledging the wrongdoing.
Yes, acknowledging the specific actions, treachery, hostility, both personal and ancestral. And he continues, "Then when their uncircumcised hearts are humbled and they pay for their sin."
So it takes owning it and a real internal change, a humbling.
That seems to be the turning point.
Yeah.
If that happens, then comes the promise. "Then I will remember my covenant with Jacob and my covenant with Isaac and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land."
He remembers the original promises, and the land itself is part of that memory.
It is, the land that was getting its forced rest. And despite how severe everything got, despite them being in exile in enemy lands, there's this crucial assurance.
Which is?
"I will not reject them or abhor them so as to destroy them completely, breaking my covenant with them. Even after all that, the covenant itself endures. For I am the Lord their God."
So the relationship, the covenant, isn't ultimately destroyed by the judgment, even though the terms brought that judgment about.
Exactly. The root of the relationship holds. And it says, "For their sake, he'll remember the covenant made with their ancestors, the one made way back when they were brought out of Egypt in the sight of the nations to be their God." That foundational event is invoked again.
So this chapter, after detailing these truly horrific outcomes for disobedience, it still offers this lifeline, a path back through repentance and humility, and it's rooted in the enduring nature of those earlier promises and, well, the character of the divine described here.
Yeah, it moves from this picture of complete breakdown to a potential for renewal, but it's contingent on that human response, that turning back.
And the chapter wraps up by just stating clearly that these decrees, laws, regulations, this whole structure was established on Mount Sinai between the Lord and the Israelites through Moses. It grounds the whole thing in that foundational moment.
Reinforces that this wasn't some random punishment, but the agreed-upon terms from the very start of their formalized relationship.
So this deep dive into Leviticus 26 really gives you this powerful, almost jarring picture. You've got a covenant with incredibly clear terms. Obedience leads to overwhelming blessing, divine presence. Disobedience kicks off this dramatic, escalating sequence of curses that 7 times over thing, perhaps suggesting a complete methodical application of consequence, leading to utter desolation and exile.
Yeah, it's a framework that directly links the collective actions of a community, their faithfulness or their rejection of core principles, with the actual tangible realities they experience, from the food they grow to their safety, even their state of mind.
Thinking about this ancient text now, maybe it leaves you, the listener, with a question. To what extent do you see patterns where collective behavior seems to influence tangible outcomes for groups, communities, even nations today? Does this ancient portrayal of consequence, judgment, but also potential restoration, does it resonate with, or maybe challenge, your own understanding of things like justice, mercy, and that complex link between actions and results? Definitely a lot to chew on from just one chapter.